Hello, welcome back. We are four struggling filmmakers. My name's Emma. Joined with me is Noah.
Hi everyone.
Jimmy.
Hello, chaps.
And James.
Hello.
We have a very special episode this week because what is it, James?
Oscars week, guys. So by the time this video goes up, the Oscars will be tomorrow. So we're doing a pre-Oscars prediction episode where we talk about probably not all the categories, but some of them, about which ones we think should win.
Because we have mostly just been watching Oscar noms this week, there will be no recommendation section, but we'll talk about the films as we go. So feel free to check them out because a lot of them are on streaming services this time round. So we're going to go through some certain ones that we've picked, and then we might mention some other categories. But the main categories we are going to mention are Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Cinematography, Best Original Screenplay, Achievement in Directing, and then we're going to finish up with the big one, Best Picture. We will now kick off with four struggling filmmakers, Oscar predictions. Best Actor predictions, who'd like to go first?
Who's seen the most?
Me.
Probably James.
Oh yeah, you've seen all of them, ain't you?
I spent the past week basically watching everything, so I'll kick it off with...
No, I want to kick it off, thank you very much.
Fine! You kick it off then, Noah!
So the nominations are everyone. Riz Ahmed, Sound of Metal. Chadwick Boseman, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Anthony Hopkins, The Father. Gary Oldman, Mank. Stephen Yeun, Minari. I think I've probably butchered his name, but basically Chadwick Boseman's going to win because he's not alive. There we go. Moving on.
I also think that Chadwick Boseman is going to win as a homage to his career. However, I think
Heath Ledger. Sorry.
Riz Ahmed or Anthony Hopkins would also be a very good choice because I think especially Riz Ahmed, phenomenal in Sound of Metal. But my money is going to be on Chadwick Boseman as a nice little homage to round up, because it was his final film, wasn't it, before he unfortunately passed away. So I think it definitely would be a nice sort of round off to his whole career.
Riz Ahmed was good, but I did at the beginning think his performance was just shouty and pungent things, and I was just like, is it going to be one of those performances? But then it actually got really good as the film went along. There was more to it.
Does it start as an old school 1970s Gene Hackman? I must act as much as possible.
Well, he's playing a person in a metal band, so it kind of fits the character.
Yeah,
that's fair. Is it proper method?
I'd say so, because it like progresses, because he starts off only with some of his hearing lost, and then there's a point in the film where he's just fully deaf. And he had to learn a lot of sign language, and he lived with people who were deaf to, learn from them how to be deaf, basically. And that's kind of what the film's about. So I think he did a very good job there. So for my picks, just all throughout, I was thinking, do I go for what I think deserves to win, or do I go for what I expect to win?
Yeah,
and I decided, you know what, I'm going to go for some outside picks, and if they end up being true, it's good for me. So I'm picking Anthony Hopkins. Even though for the past few years he's been nominated, he hasn't won, and I don't think he's going to win this time. But I think out of all the performances there, his was the best one by far. It's the one that resonated with me on an emotional level the most.
It was so powerful, wasn't it?
What I quite like about all the nominees this year is they definitely have some nuance to them. Well, some of them. I think Chadwick Boseman, whilst a good performance, was a bit performative because the whole film is based on a play.
Yeah,
so he's kind of giving that kind of acting style to it.
The issue with Ma Rainey is the fact that it is a play, and it is. This might be controversial, but it is better as a play. But that means that the whole acting style and the whole costume design and everything is play-like rather than motion picture-like.
I mean, that links into the whole sort of subjectivity argument, doesn't it? Because the two schools of acting are, is it performance or replication? Are you replicating real life, or are you doing a performance? And since about 1970, it's far, far more gone towards replication. So it's actually quite refreshing to get something a bit different. James raised an interesting point where he said, are you going with your heart basically, or are you trying to win? And I want to win the predictions as much as any man, woman, or child. So I'm going for Chadwick Boseman. I've not seen the film. I've not seen the trailer.
moving on to lovely Best Actress. So, James, do you want to read out the nominations?
The Best Actress nominations, we've got Viola Davis in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. We've got Andra Day in The United States versus Billie Holiday. Vanessa Kirby in Pieces of a Woman. Frances McDormand into Nomadland. And Carey Mulligan in Promising Young Woman.
Good selection there. However, I am going to mention that I think Elizabeth Moss for The Invisible Man was snubbed, and I think The Invisible Man as a whole was snubbed. And I think it's such a powerful performance that she delivers. And the whole film rests upon her performance as well. And she gives such a cool and like chilling performance, and to not be even here or any of the film being nominated in any elements. It's a bit of a snub.
That film, in its themes and in its subject, is as important as the rest of these films.
Agreed.
Because it's in like a horror framework, just completely ignored.
Academy doesn't like genre.
I will say, talking about themes though, I think we should say a lot of the films that have been nominated have very relevant themes to today's society, and I think the Oscars have done well to acknowledge that.
It's all just, publicity though, Emma.
Yeah. It's a very interesting conversation to have about it, is because are they picking it because the filmmaking is stellar and they want to reward that, or are they picking it just to fill a quota?
Best Actress, Jimmy, who are you going for?
I'm representing the British. I have seen Promising Young Woman, and I think Carey Mulligan is a promising young woman. She's nuanced. If we're talking about realism versus performance, I would say it's a very real performance. Flicks between emotional. Her character's funny, but very emotional, and she's also very emotional, depending on the bit of the film. And she flicks between the two very well. Very believable. I would say very nuanced.
I'm going to agree with you on Carey Mulligan, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I think Promising Young Woman, I think we've already discussed, it's a bit of a left field pick for the Oscars. It's not a very Oscar film if you think about the usual. But I think Carey Mulligan, it's almost like she plays multiple characters throughout this film, despite it being the one main lead. Yeah, I think such a good performance from her, and she captures the character really well.
And I'll tell you what tops it off for me with my pointy finger, my Donald Trump finger. What tops it off for me is that she conveys all of the sadness and anger, and I don't think she cries once throughout the whole film.
I read as well, I think it was a magazine, one of the reviewers basically said something about her in this that was sort of like along the lines of her not, basically, she responded by saying, basically, you're saying I'm not hot enough.
A reviewer said, look, Margot Robbie is on the credits as a producer. One can't help but feel Margot Robbie would have suited the role better. And he dived into that, which Carey Mulligan very understandably took that as, so you're basically saying I'm not hot enough. But the guy's defense was, I'm an 80-year-old gay man. It really, that wasn't the angle I was approaching it from. I think Margot Robbie probably would have brought too much confidence and not enough vulnerability.
I picked Carey Mulligan for this as well, but then I do have a sneaking suspicion probably Frances McDormand might win, but I'm going to go with my heart and say Carey Mulligan.
After what we discussed with Best Actor and how I didn't pick Chadwick Boseman because his performance was very performative, I'm picking Viola Davis for Best Actress.
Whoa.
With the difference between those two performances, I think Viola Davis genuinely transforms into Ma Rainey in that film. Comparing performances a little bit, a few weeks back, I recommended Widows because I watched it for my alphabet month. And watching Viola Davis in that and watching her in this, it's two completely different people. And it is insane how much range she has. And I think this performance specifically, I kept watching it. I was like, nah, that can't be her. Because the way she carries herself, I think that's also helped with like the costume and the makeup.
Makeup, yeah.
It's just the whole way she carries herself, her confidence. And it's just like under the surface, like she could like crack at any moment and just snap at you is just genuinely fantastic.
Let me tell you the trouble with actresses like Frances McDormand and Viola.
Is this relevant, Jimmy?
Where they're so consistently good, it makes it, from sort of outside perspective, it makes it their performances less impressive because they're so bloody good all the time. It's less of a shock to the Academy, so I think they're less likely to reward it. Whereas someone like Carey Mulligan, who does fewer films, to be honest, I would say, and certainly has less recognised performance, It feels like a more special performance. I'm trying to get into the mindset of the.
Yeah.
I do agree with Jimmy on this point, especially linking back to Anthony Hopkins, because as I said, he's been nominated many times, and every single time he hasn't really turned in a bad performance. But you can't just keep nominating Anthony Hopkins in the hope that he's going to win again. You've got Daniel Kaluuya and Keith Stanfield in Judas and the Black Messiah, who were the main two characters of the film.
Yeah.
And they both got supporting, which I kind of have a feeling that's the only way that they could have nominated both of them.
Yeah.
And also
maybe.
some other people as well. So it's kind of like a loophole thing. But it's also like neither of them was supporting. Like Daniel Kaluuya maybe, but only just.
That's the thing with the Oscars, that it's never, ever known how to deal with ensemble cast. It just doesn't understand it. It doesn't get it. And it doesn't know how to reward it. There should always be an award for best performance under half an hour or something.
Are we ready to move on to the best cinematography? Which, Jimmy, you are going to read out the nominations.
Judas and the Black Messiah, Sean Bobbitt. Mank, Eric Messerschmidt. We have News of the World, Darius Volsky. Nomadland, Joshua James Richards. And we have The Trial of the Chicago 7, Phelan Papamichael. I'm
going to go out there because I'm not sure you guys will necessarily agree, but I've picked The News of the World.
Oh, no.
The reason I actually, The News of the World I thought was all right. I thought in bits it was quite slow, but that was the whole point of the film. So the reason I picked it is because it had the potential for lots of cool cinematography, which I think it does well, because the whole premise of the film is it's traveling across like America, Wild West America. So you instantly, like by the premise of the film, have so many opportunities to do different cool shots, like, you know, landscape shots, walking shots, traveling shots, and I think it's done so well. The cinematography, the visuals, I think definitely deserve to be here, which is why I've done a little left field pick and gone for The News of the World.
Ooh.
Thoughts on my News of the World pick?
You do what you want, love.
You should.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
I thought you read that very well. You've convinced me. Well, it's not what I'm going to pick, but you've convinced me that it's definitely up there. Look, location is a big part of cinematography, isn't it? If you've got a bad canvas, your painting's going to be shit.
Yeah.
So you've got to have a good location to make some art. I have gone for Mank on the basis of black and white accentuates every form of lighting, and lighting is at least 50% of cinematography.
Yeah.
So I think the Academy and all the people out there in the world are more likely to notice all the amazing lighting choices that Mr. Eric Messerschmidt has made. Black and white is really cool.
Jimmy's made a compelling argument. I think I'll go with Nomadland because it looks a bit like it might look good. I haven't seen any of the clips from this, but I'm just gonna go for it.
I've seen the poster.
Because variety, you know.
Yeah, why
Keep
not?
people guessing.
Go on,
it
then,
looks like
James.
it's got a sort of Paris, Texas sort of vibe to it.
Yeah.
And that looked good. So there you go. That's my argument.
Go on, then, James. As the one who's seen
to
all of them.
build up Noah's this point a bit more, because I've actually seen Nomadland. There's a lot in there, especially what works about it is the locales that they use, because it's basically a road trip movie in some ways, where it's just going off to different parts of the Americas, and the way it's shot is done it's almost Terrence Malick-esque in a way, but it's with a much more stronger story to it. So that's a very good pick. Now I definitely would have almost picked that, but I am going to agree with Jimmy as well, Mank, because when I wrote my review for it, I called it cinematic showing off, and that's basically what it is, because it's done in a way, and a lot of the camera choices and compositions are done to basically replicate what was done in Citizen Kane. So it basically looks like a film from that era. And if you watch both of these films back to back, it makes a very nice double feature, obviously, because the stories are about each other. Visually, it's just fantastic. David Fincher and Eric Messerschmidt do some like stellar stuff, and it's just like insane how like to a T they get it.
I want to change my mind. I'm going to go for Mank. I realised like Fincher's cinematography is always really good. So.
I mean, if you've got Citizen Kane-esque cinematography, you're in for a win, aren't you, really? But I'm going to stick with mine.
That's fair.
I'm going for Mank.
Okay, I've changed you.
Our cinematographer, Eric Messerschmidt, who you've just said David Fincher always has really good cinematography. Like, what about Eric Messerschmidt?
I said Eric Messerschmidt.
James, no one just said,
David Finch, yeah.
no one was backing up the auteur theory that we all love so much.
No, it's true, isn't it?
No, none of us are for the auteur theory.
Can I just say, I always say
It's true, isn't it?
I always say that screenwriters have a really rough time. Editors, cinematographers, costume designers, production designers, makeup and hairstyle have it worse.
True. I think we're all for the collaborative approach instead of an auteur theory, aren't we, really?
Yeah. It is a film.
Kinda, yeah.
Unless the director is actually doing all of those jobs, they've not done all those jobs.
Moving away from cinematography, where we had Mank and News of the World, we're going to look at Best Original Screenplay. I will read out the nominations for this.
Ooh.
So we have Judas and the Black Messiah, screenplay written by Will Burson and Shakar King, story by Will Burson and Shakar King, and Kenny Lucas and Keith Lucas. Minari, written by Lee Isaac Chung. Promising Young Woman, written by Emerald Fennell. Sound of Metal, the screenplay by Darius Marder and Abraham Marder. Story by Darius Marder and Derek Sinafrance. Something like that. The Trial of the Chicago 7, written by Aaron Sorkin. I'll just get mine out of the way. I've gone for The Sound of Metal because I think it captures every musician's worst nightmare and fear, and then makes us live through it in such a poignant way. Yeah, I think the story is fantastic, personally.
Fair play.
Derek, what is it? Jimmy?
Sean France.
See him, France.
No, Sean France.
Sean France.
I'm pretty sure it's Sean France. I could be off base there. Look, I've been a big fan of that guy since
Day one.
Since Blue Valentine. I was going to say Blue Velvet. He definitely didn't do it. Blue Velvet. I have studied screenwriting for a number of years in the academy, at the Metropolitan Film Institution. Now, having seen Promising Young Woman, the story is bloody fantastic. It's an absolute journey. It's probably one of the most compelling thrillers that I've ever seen in my life. If you thought Get Out was well written, you ain't seen nothing till you see Promising Young Woman.
Oh, wrong. Oh, wrong.
No, I'm not wrong, James. To keep twisting, but in a way that doesn't feel contrived or unrealistic, and to find layers upon layers of a character an hour or an hour and a half into the film is a fantastic testament to representing the British again. Emerald Fennell, who is a British female filmmaker. Oh, I just loved that film so much.
What did you pick? Promising Young Woman?
Promising Young Woman, yeah.
What's the big Promising Young talking about?
Sometimes you talk for so long, I never really know what you're saying.
That's the podcast.
Go on, Noah. You tell us who you picked for best.
Oh, this is really tough because.
Oh, sorry.
We're playing this game, are we? I've got a feeling that I'll go for Judas and the Black Messiah, and I reckon that's got to be my pick. I reckon. Why? Based on the trailer, it looked really good. I actually think they'll be playing politics quite a lot this year, and I think after the year with Black Lives Matter and that, I reckon they'll probably give it to this, and I think it deserves it.
Go on then, James. Who are you picking?
Well, it's interesting for a lot of these categories because I feel like any one of them could win.
Yeah.
With original screenplay specifically, I think all of these are very fantastic films in their own right. I will probably also go with Noah and say Judas and the Black Messiah because the character and work in that film is fantastic. Both Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield, both of their characters are sort of building towards this, not necessarily a resolution, but this climax right at the end, and you kind of know what's coming, and it's such a gut punch. There's also some fantastic other characters in it as well. You never really get the full picture about any of these characters, and then it's like fully revealed what happens. And I think it's a fantastic story. It's very powerful. I think even if they are going for the politics pick, this film is good in its own right as well. So I can't really fault it for that at all.
Sometimes a politics pick isn't necessarily a bad thing either, because if it pushes it out into society and it's a film that showcases the issue in a good way, sometimes I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
We're now on to our best achievement in directing.
Best director.
Go on then, Noah, read out our Read out our noms.
Directors: Thomas Vinterberg, Another Round; David Fincher, Mank; Lee Isaac Chung, Minari; Chloe Zhao, Nomadland; and Emerald Fennell, Promising Young Woman.
I haven't seen the whole film. However, I've seen like most of it, and I'm picking Minari, but with Lee Isaac Chung, because I think the film, although like it's not necessarily a groundbreaking new film, I think if you can direct a child actor to that point of like giving such a good performance, which I think is given, I think you're on the right track to being a good director, and you have other performances in there are like well directed, and I think the film as a whole, like creatively, is really really nice. So I'm putting my pick with Minari.
Minari is definitely a good pick. I mean, like, again, any of these picks would be very good picks for Best Director, but Minari specifically is a very personal story to the director, and I feel like that shows because it has so much character, and you can definitely tell that there's a lot of his own story shown through that. Just the entire film, through his directing, through his writing. But in terms of directing itself, I think it's very well done, and I wouldn't be upset if that won, really.
I'm gonna shock you all by picking Promising Young
Emerald
Woman.
Fennell.
Oh,
She, being the screenwriter and the director, there is a massive cohesion between the camera movement in this film and the story that you don't get in a lot of films. I've never actually been one who massively looks at the direction in films. I'm always far more focused on story, far more focused on production design, that sort of thing. And to be fair, a lot of really good directing, you hardly notice it because it feels so natural. But something about this film definitely made me take notice of every camera choice, every shot. Some really brave shot choices, I think, in this film, particularly, without spoiling it, towards the end when it holds a certain shot for 2.5 minutes. Extremely powerful, extremely uncomfortable.
With that certain shot as well, you're expecting something different to happen, like a different outcome.
Yeah, you're waiting for her. I can't talk about it without. Yeah, you can definitely tell that it's been directed by a woman, and I mean that empoweringly, because it picks camera angles and it picks shots that a man would be too afraid to pick for that story. Like in the opening scene, when we're sort of seeing her looking down between her legs at the man between her legs, I think a lot of male directors would be too afraid to do that shot because it's very uncomfortable as a man, and definitely more so as a woman. And it's such a brave film.
With Promising Young Woman, there's a lot of conscious choices made that I really appreciate. How they never show any assault. It's always off screen or it's always implied. And this is more to do with the writing more than anything, but they never use the word rape. They never use the word assault. It's all implication, and you kind of fill in the blanks yourself.
Yeah, I think it respects the subject quite well.
Yeah, they only leave the most shocking moments in front of the camera when they are the most shocking moments, as being the ending and certain other things.
It's a film, and from a directorial debut, a feature directorial debut anyway. It's a film that understands where the power is in the story. It shows massive confidence in her directing ability and her screenwriting ability, which she clearly has the talent for both.
Go on, Noah. We know you're dying to tell us yours.
You're edging to tell us the truth.
What, my pick?
Yeah.
I would like the idea of Thomas Vinterberg winning it, because he was part of the Dogma 95 movement, which we are all familiar with, and the idea of one of the creators of that winning the Oscar is quite funny to me, because they were all out their whole sort of creation, and that was sort of the anti sort of mainstream film in there. Do you think he'll accept it if he wins it? Who knows? That is a good point. I reckon a good question. Has he now just become everything he hated when he created that?
I think, yeah, that's definitely a good point. And like, if he does accept it, does that diminish what he's been working for? Everything anti-Academy.
Oh, we'll never know because he won't win.
But is that your pick, Noah?
Jimmy's right. He's not going to win.
Go with your heart, Noah. Do it.
Go with your heart.
Go with my heart, and I'm going to go with Chloe Zhao.
From Nomadland.
It is a brilliantly directed film.
Go on then, James. Round us off.
Round us off, shall I? All right. I feel like there's some notable snubs in here. I think Shaka King's direction and Judas and the Black Messiah definitely should have gotten a nom. I'm genuinely surprised it didn't get that. And Florian Zeller for The Father as well. I thought the direction in that was very smart.
Amazing.
And it's
Nomadland.
just
What, in Tenet?
He got snubbed, didn't he?
no, he shouldn't get it for Tenet, no. But Florian Zeller for The Father, I think, is a notable one because I feel like the direction in that, amongst other elements of that film, are completely stand out. But this was the most difficult one for me to pick. I'm still unsure. God, I don't know.
Go on, just go in your what's when we say achievement in directing from the nominations, you think first of all
David Fincher is just a testament to how well he can direct, that he can replicate a style so flawlessly. And whilst I don't think it's the best Fincher film, nor do I think it's the best film nominated out of the ones for Best Picture or even Best Directing, I feel like the direction on display in Mank should probably get him something.
We now get to move on to what Noah has been waiting for this whole episode, our predictions for Best Picture.
Oh.
So, James, would you like to read out our nominations for Best Picture?
Of course. The Father, Judas and the Black Messiah, Mank, Minari, Nomadland, Promising Young Woman, Sound of Metal, and The Trial of the Chicago 7.
I'll kick us off then. So I'm going for a left field pick, potentially, but I'm going to go for The Father. I think this film captures the notion of dementia, but not in a way like, for example, I think the film Love Rosie does, where it's the family and things. You actually put the viewer themselves is put in the mind of someone with dementia. Things change within the film and you are confused, you're disorientated. The furniture changes, the colours change, you're going back and forward in time. You don't really know as a viewer what's going on. You talk about like an unreliable narrator. This is literally it. And I think it definitely deserves Best Picture because I think the film is absolutely stunning. And everything has been considered, from little things to big things. Like every frame in that movie, there is something in there for a reason.
It's the perfect example of unorthodox screenplay structure.
It is. Oh my God, it is.
You'd love it. You would love it. It
And
reminded me a lot.
It's one that uses it because it needs to use it.
Yeah,
not
exactly.
just because it can. It needs it.
It reminded me of like a Charlie Kaufman film almost, the way it like deals with time and stuff, and just memory. I think it's very impressive. It's a fantastic film.
Just quickly, was Charlie Kaufman snubbed this year with that I'm Thinking of Ending Things?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think in terms of editing maybe, and like makeup and hairstyling, because Toni Collette and David Thewlis have old age makeup, and I think it's very convincing, and I think it's very well done as well. But those are my only two things. Writing, it's very layered, but I don't think it necessarily would have gotten nominated if it was, you know.
Also, Mark Kermode said the film Saint Maud was snubbed quite a lot.
Yeah,
Any of us see that? I haven't seen it. It looks quite good.
No, he does overly champion horrors though.
He does, yeah.
And
but they hate horrors.
The Academy doesn't like horror, yeah. So
yeah.
Go on then, Jimmy. Who are you going for Best Picture?
Oh, say it with me. Promising
Young Woman.
Yes, of course it is. I mean, honestly, can't imagine anything else blowing me away. I went into this film actually not wanting to like it. I don't know why, really, but my dad mentioned it to me a week or two ago. He was like, "Oh, have you heard of this Promising Young Woman?" I was like, "No, what's that about?" And he told me what it's about, and I was like, "I'm not sure if I'm on board with this. This sounds like it's going to be tokenistic. It sounds like it's going to have a very skewed view on things." And really, none of that really mattered at all, because it's just look. I really agree with the politics of this film. That's really not important at all. Just taking it as a piece of visual art. It is one of the best constructed thrillers I've ever seen, and that's not an exaggeration. It really is. It blows you away. It gets you involved in the characters from the first scene to the last scene. It keeps twisting and turning. It keeps you guessing. It manages to find new layers. I'm repeating a lot of what I said earlier, but it really is a gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that your dad suggested it, because my dad came to me and he was like, "I've downloaded this film I think you'll like." So we watched it together, and it's funny because we were both trying to guess where the film was going to go. And I think about an hour and a half in, we were like, oh, this would be a nice ending, and we sort of looked how long was left, and it was like, we know something's going to go wrong because there's too much time left. So we were like, what's it going to be?
What I do quite like, I'll do a brief opinion of Promising Young Woman in a second, because I don't think I've given my opinion on it properly. But I do have to say there's a lot about it I do like. I think the casting in this film should be commended, because there is literally not a single person in there that I wouldn't expect to play that character. Because especially because they could have gone for the obvious option of just making like, oh, it's a sleazy douchebag bro and he's massive. But they go for like they go for like Christopher Mintz-Plasse, and they do Bo Burnham, like these likable comedic guys, and they make them just sort of assholeish in a way. And I feel like that's reflective of how it is in real life, because it's never really the people you expect. In terms of my opinion of the film, I'm sort of middling on it. There's a lot of it I do like, and I'd happily watch it again. But I feel like it's stuck between being two different films, and therefore the tone suffers a little bit. It starts as one film, and then it sort of just goes, no, I'm going to be a different film for a little bit, and then it becomes another thing at the end, and that's kind of point. It's just that point, though. The change between the dips is
what the point, though, isn't it?
No, I know that's the point, but I just didn't like it.
And then you're not.
It's just, I feel like the tone is just a bit not as good as it could have been. It could have been a bit more consistent.
I've thought about this a lot since watching it. Usually, I would be 100% on your side, James. I think tonal inconsistency can massively damage a film. But I actually think it makes this film more real.
Yeah.
More realistic. Because life is like that, really. It's only because we're so used to the structure of films having one tone all the way through that it feels like... And, you know, there's an argument that it should be like that because it's a more cohesive piece of art. But I agree that this film gets away with it for me. It brings an added layer of realism to it. No, are you dying to say something again?
Shall I talk about the elephant in the room?
Yeah, go for it.
We probably might have to cut out in case of spoilers and such, I don't know, but see how it goes. So the ending, I think you'll all agree with me that one of the main sort of themes of the film is sort of about the failure of the system. Yeah. So why does it end with that same system that you spent the whole film sort of discrediting? Arresting those guys and taking them away. Oh, we've got a happy ending now.
Absolutely had to end that way.
Did it though?
Absolutely.
How brave would it have been if it just ended with those guys getting away with it? I know audience wouldn't like it, but that would have been so brave.
No, because you think they are going to get away with it, and they don't, and that's the retribution piece. And it's not a happy ending.
That's the troubling. That's why some women don't like it, for that very reason.
This film cannot be that, yes, you can actually get away with this sort of thing. It just, that you can't send that message out. That's why I thought, if it had ended the way it looked like it was going to end, I was going to be so disappointed. Because
yeah, but you're a man.
That would have been very brave, but you can't. This, you know, there's some hope with this film for women that have been through this.
Oh, what? She's dead.
Yeah.
Not a great message, though, is it? She just dies, mate.
Don't get away with it.
To be fair, I did think that death was a bit abrupt, but then it kind of trickles through that she knew she was going to die anyway.
As we're talking about the ending now, I can discuss my opinion on. I think both of your opinions, both Noah and Jimmy and Emma's point on the ending, are both valid. I feel like, again, to me, it comes down to tone, because I feel it just sort of becomes, it's a very powerful thing where she dies and you're just like, what's going to happen now? And then at the end, it's like, it was Ocean's 11. It was the plan all along. And then it's just sort of like, so she's an all-knowing super person who knew that she was going to die.
I'm so overwhelmed by your points that it's destroying my ability to think coherently.
I don't know if it's slightly off topic or not, but I was like, I like the fact that nobody in this film has a redemption arc apart from one person.
Yeah.
The one person in this film that has a redemption arc is the lawyer.
Alfred.
And that is so interesting, that this lawyer who's gone chasing like these women, saying, you know, you're wrong, blah blah blah. This whole idea that, you know, if you accuse someone of the incidents that are happened in the film, you will be shut down. And this lawyer is having this full mental breakdown and really wants to be hurt, and like she's just like, no, I forgive you. And then she gives him the recording so he can finally fulfill his like redemption. I quite liked that.
In the end,
So, what does everyone think of the other Best Picture nominees?
What I like about the lawyer scene is how it is a sort of mirror reflection of Bo Burnham's scene when he gets found out, because it shows that Alfred Molina is genuinely sorrowful and regretful of what he's done, and it takes so much for him to be like, please forgive me, and then even then Carey Mulligan still kind of are held back by it. She's like, do I? And then she does, and then it's a big catharsis.
So Noah, tell us your Best Picture nom.
Ooh, so it seems like there's quite a diverse amount of picks, isn't it? It's very, very different. Different backgrounds, different colours, different genders. I am going to go for Sound of Metal because
Good choice.
It's a completely unique and different story, and like the idea of it picking this topic about sort of sign language, I think that's something that is quite refreshing and quite new to see, and I think this would be a remarkable achievement if it won.
I think Sound of Metal is a very powerful film, especially there are 3 distinct moments in it where you're like, okay, this hits, and it's where his hearing changes. It's from the initial bit where everything just sort of goes fuzzy and muted, where you have that moment of shock. It's like, okay, this is where stuff starts kicking in. You can really feel it throughout that whole section. And then the next bit is where he goes fully deaf, where he just before he goes to the operation and everything's silent. And then the third one, I think the most impactful, is where he gets the thing turned back on, and you can see that he was expecting one thing, and the fact that he didn't get exactly what he wanted, because it's not perfect, and you can see that throughout the entire party scene as well. It's just it's really it's upsetting because he got what he wanted, but it's not exactly how it was before. Even the same with his girlfriend as well. That's kind of, she's drifted away a little bit because of his disability, unfortunately.
That leaves our final pick of today, James Harrison.
James Harrison, as I'm so commonly called. If I was to pick one, as great as The Father is, I'm going to have to pick Judas and the Black Messiah.
Okay.
There's so much of that film that just completely nails its subject matter with so much respect, and it's so well done. It's just so well done. Like, I'm so disappointed that Shaka King didn't get nominated for Best Directing, because I think there's some fantastic just directorial choices in here. All the acting is phenomenal. It builds to a just completely just heartbreaking conclusion that really hits you. And then, you know, when films usually be like, here's the story that we're going to tell, and then afterwards it's like, X person is doing this and this and this. There is one sentence of that there's many sentences that really hit home because this actually happened, but one sentence in particular, when you read it, you're like, oh my god, that is just even worse than I could have even imagined. I think it's the best film out of that bunch, out of films which any one of them could get it. Like, as we've mentioned, Trial of Chicago 7 maybe less so, but Judas and the Black Messiah is my pick for Best Picture.
We all know that the Oscars is just a bunch of publicity, and it's a bunch of people, old white men in suits. So who actually cares? And that's my final point.
This is the first cancelled episode of For Struggling Filmmakers. About the Oscars, why did we even talk about it? Put it in the bin.
And on that note, let us know your predictions, if you agree with our predictions. If you've not seen any of the films, have we persuaded you to want to see any of them? I think there's definitely some good ones in there.
I just wanted to say, if you don't like any of my opinions, I'm on Twitter as James Harrison.
At jharrison_films.
Yes, there you go.
Ooh.
Like my film Twitter again. Follow me, guys, please.
Which just demonstrates that we're going to continue to struggle. You guys continue to stay safe. And we'll see you next Sunday. Bye.
Boy.
Paul Raci is brilliant in this, isn't he? Was he snubbed as a supporting actor? Maybe. James?
Isn't he nominated for supporting actor?